Hello and welcome back to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar. In this video we're analysing Nothing Gold Can Stay by Robert Frost. This 8-line poetic gem focuses on the inevitability of change and how transient life is. This is also an award-winning poem, first published in the October edition in 1923 at Yale, and then republished in 1924 as part of a collection called New Hampshire that won Frost the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry that year. It has lasted the test of time. Frost's poetry so often uses nature as the backdrop and foundation for him to examine human emotion and push hidden ideas to the surface. This poem is no different. Nothing Gold Can Stay is actually an analysis of how when leaves are new, they're seen as bright, yet they're already diminishing. That could seem quite bleak, but there's a pragmatism beneath this poem. I'm going to read it for you now and then launch into analysis. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day, nothing gold can stay. To fuel our focus further in this poem, I've used a key that's on the top left-hand corner for you there to show you some of the major ideas I see running through and dripping from this poem. As we go into it, I'd love for you to use the comments to share your own interpretation. I know I get so much rich feedback, and I know so many of you love responding to it too. The opening line, nature's first green is gold, can just feel like we're talking about a trick of a light here, but in reality, this is an acknowledgement of how nature is its most precious when it's young. So we're talking about emerging shoots and the blossoming nature of that. If you actually hear the rhythm that you're forced to say with the opening line, you are forced to slow down when it says first green. That rhythm itself defies the rest of this poem that is broadly in iambic trimeter. The opening line and the final line divert from that, slowing us down in the middle. And what they do is show the central tension of this whole poem, which is about how we mustn't try and hold on to things, but instead embrace the moment. I think the metaphor of nature's first green being gold, its connotations of value, decadence, beauty, but also something to be coveted, so precious. And then we see the personification of nature, Mother Nature, in line 2. This is intense alliteration that's so rich in our awareness of her struggle. It's her hardest hue to hold. She can't keep that colour up forever. In fact, is she going to try and fight that? The H sound is exasperating to say, and it repeats the struggle as echoed by the superlative hardest. Now, if that doesn't feel like it sits well with you, the repetition of her again at the start of line 3 signals nature's cycle. Her early leaf's a flower. A leaf isn't a flower, is it? But in this poem it is. So the flower is another metaphor. But then as we flit breezily on to line 4, but only so an hour. Wow, that's pretty fast, this natural cycle. That's exaggeration, and it highlights the poetic voice's view that life is transient. You blink and you'll miss it. I think it's interesting that we have a natural pause with the full stop at the end of line 4. We're forced to contemplate what's about to come. Line 5 concentrates again on the leaf. It subsides to leaf. And the idea there, I suspect, is that it's fading. The verb subsides is interesting. It comes from the Latin that really means to sink, which echoes what happens with its full stop. There's a sense of stagnancy in this moment in the poem. And as if that weren't enough, we're then taken to a classical allusion. So just to be clear, Frost is a classical scholar. He knows his verb choices incredibly well. The link made with sink is echoed further by what happens in the following line with a biblical allusion to Eden. So in line 6, the biblical allusion of Eden. This is the human shame that Adam and Eve have, having been punished by God for their disobedience, eating the fruit they're told not to eat. So Eden sank to grief. Sank. It mirrors subsides in the prior line. But fundamentally, Eden sank to grief. Can Eden sink? Well, the alliteration, if nothing else, shows us the sense that there is a fall. There is a fall from grace from Adam and Eve, and there is also a fall in human emotions. It signals that nothing ideal lasts forever. Nothing could. And as if that wasn't clear enough, line 7 then shows us again. So dawn goes down today. The sunrise is temporary, and its temporal state makes way for daytime. I think it's beautiful, but also tragic in the way it's framed. Because at moments in this poem, we can, as readers, be naturally drawn to wanting to hold the moment. And instead, we get a privileged position of being able to see the natural beauty and value it without expecting it to stay stagnant. And then the true beauty of this poem, the final line, nothing gold can stay. Well, it does what it says. It's an affirmative of the title through its repetition. Value the precious moments as change is inevitable. It can't stay forever. Line 8 diverts away, as I said, from the iambic trimeter that we see across the rest of the poem, much like line 1, focusing on the word gold and us slowing down in the way we read that. This poem has lasted the test of time, and it's lasted because it echoes a constant struggle we have in a fast-paced world where we often want to hold on and cling on to the moment. The rhyme scheme does something also to echo the focus of us as readers. It's interesting that each 2 lines rhymes. It helps us hold on to the key messages: gold, hold, flower, hour, leaf, grief, day, stay. What I notice with those end words isn't just rhyme, but is how tightly woven they match to the key ideas that run through this poem, of how we mustn't try and hold on to things, how nature is always changing. The full rhymes pairing together reflects how seasons change, and I suspect also, as a classical scholar, that Frost really liked full rhymes because it added to the clarity and fueling the, well, intensity of what he wants to say. I'm fascinated to know what you think. Thank you so much for analysing with me.